Welcome everyone. My name is Joel Werfel and I am an account manager here with SkillForge, and I want to welcome you to our webinar today. We try to do at least one of these a month on a topic that seems fairly relevant, and I think QlikView definitely does. If you are not familiar with it, Brian Smedley, one of our instructors here at SkillForge, is going to be telling you all about it over the next 45 minutes to an hour. As much as he can fit in that time frame, and showing you a little bit of what QlikView can do. If you've not seen it before, it's a very cool tool that, as Brian will show you, can take data from a lot of different data sources and create some really interesting and useful visualizations from it. And of course, business intelligence and dashboarding is a big topic right now in a lot of companies. So I'm glad that you're all attending. We're going to be recording this presentation, so if you are not able to attend the whole thing, or if you have coworkers that you might want to have watch it as well, it will be posted to our YouTube channel after the presentation is over, and I will send out an email to all of you to let you know what the link to that recording is once we're done. One reason, though, to stick around, though, is that we are going to give away a prize at the end of the webinar as well. So actually, Brian, if you could go to the next slide for me. Thank you, sir. I just want to tell you a little bit before Brian gets started about the material that this presentation relates to, which is from our QlikView 3-day course. And this is a course that covers topics that are applicable both to designers as well as developers. So in the QlikView world, designers might be the folks that are actually building the dashboards, kind of more the graphical component of it. And developers might be the folks that are more focused on the data and the data model behind the scenes. And our class kind of combines a little bit of both to give you a taste of what both of those roles do. You'll be able to see in that class how to load data from different sources, maybe from a database as well as an Excel spreadsheet as well as a text file, and build something called an associative data model, which Brian might be telling you a little bit about. And then building data visualizations from that data with charts and tables and all kinds of visual tools that most of you have probably seen in other dashboarding tools to really give you, at a quick glance, a view of the key metrics within your company. You'll also see in that class how to use some built-in aggregation functions and how to do some more complex calculations. So it's a great class that gives you a good basis for QlikView. Even if you don't have a license for QlikView, maybe it's something that your company is just exploring, you can still attend this class. We use what's called the desktop edition of QlikView, which is a free download. It's a full-featured version of the product that you can use both in class and on your own. It just has some limitations as to how you can share or whether you can share the dashboards that you create, but definitely can still take the class without the full product. That class is being offered on the dates that you see on the screen. Again, it's a 3-day class, and we do have a special promotion running right now, so if you do register in one of those classes, be sure to use the promo code that's on your screen, which is QV10. It is a case-sensitive promo code, but you'll see when you register that you have the ability to enter that, and then we'll take 10% off of your registration price. You can find that class just by visiting our website and entering QlikView in the search box, and that course will come right up. It's a little bit easier than me giving you the full URL for it. We are, as I mentioned, going to be giving away a free copy of a really great resource for QlikView. It's QlikView 11 for Developers. Again, this book, which is actually the basis of the class that we deliver on QlikView, covers everything from the introduction to QlikView, so you start from scratch if you're not familiar with it, and goes all the way through to more of the developer aspects of data modeling, security, things like that. So even if you're just starting with it, this is a great book to have to get you started, and of course if you attend the class you'll receive a copy of that as well. But you do need to be here at the end of the webinar. We do make you stick around for that because we do need to get your address when you're selected for us to send that to you. So having said that, I will go ahead and let Brian take over. Again, Brian Smedley is one of our instructors here at SkillForge, teaches among many other products that 3-day QlikView class. So Brian, I will let you take it away.
Thank you, Joel. As Joel said, I'm Brian Smedley. I'm an instructor here at SkillForge, and I also teach the QlikView 11 for Developers course, which if you're the lucky winner at the end of this webinar to receive that book, that would be the course that you'd want to take to learn everything there is to know about QlikView, at least for the topics we cover in the class. I thought I would start out and just give you an overview of what you can expect from this seminar. We're going to spend just a little bit of time, not much, maybe just about 5 minutes, talking about what is QlikView. So if you've never seen it before, or maybe you've never even heard about it before, and one of the instructors in another class just said, hey, you should really go take a look at this seminar, I'll give you a kind of a basis of what the product is, who uses it, and what you get out of it. Then we're going to jump right into the demonstrations. So I've got lots of demonstrations to show you some sort of finished products of the QlikView application, so you can get an idea of what you can get out of it. Also gives you a really nice appetite whetting for, oh, that's really cool, I'd like to be able to make things like that. So we'll spend the vast majority of the webinar talking about the demonstrations. Then, once I go through the demos, I'll give you a little bit of behind the scenes of how some of the elements that you're seeing in the demonstrations were created. And you can see that some of them are actually fairly easy to create. You can create them very quickly. Some of them are a little more complicated in terms of the number of buttons and levers that you can push and pull to get them to tell different stories. So we're going to be looking at just some of the most common types of elements and properties that you can adjust. But of course, if you really want to know all the ins and outs of all of these different elements, that's why you'd want to take the class. And then, as Joel said at the very end, we've got the prize giveaway, and so you have to be here for that. And I'm going to draw one lucky winner's name, and if you happen to be that person, then I'll have you hang on the line so I can get your email address, and we can send you all the information for getting that book to you. So what exactly is QlikView? QlikView is a BI tool, or a business intelligence tool. And the standard dictionary definition for a business intelligence tool, an umbrella term that includes the applications, infrastructure, and tools, and best practices that enable access to and analysis of information to improve and optimize decisions and performance. To kind of turn all that into English, it's a tool that allows you to evaluate data, perform strategic planning within an organization, and generate business insights. So any kind of tool that does that sort of thing would be considered a business intelligence tool. Now, there are a lot of different BI tools out there. So what is it about QlikView that sort of separates it from the herd? Well, QlikView's approach to analysis is to put those tools in the hands of the user. If you look at other BI tools, or what we would consider traditional BI tools, things that were used in the past, these tools usually have what's called a predefined data exploration path. So in other words, the developer decides, this is what I want this tool's story to be, this is what I want it to tell, and that's the only story that it tells. So if you have a question that goes outside the scope of the predefined path, the odds are you're not going to get that answer unless you go back to the developer and say, look, I need to know this information as well, and then that has to be created, which means there's always going to be some sort of delay from the time you have the question between the time you get your answer. QlikView allows the user to take that path of data analysis in any direction that they wish. So the user is going to perform their own analysis, not just read reports that were provided by maybe the IT department. As Joel mentioned, we use in the class what's called the QlikView Personal Edition. This is a free of charge single user edition of the application. You can go out to QlikView's website and download this. It's fully functional. There are some limitations to it when it comes to licensing, which I'm going to talk about here in just a second. But other than that, whether you have a license or not, the program is not time bomb enabled. It doesn't have some of the features stripped out of it. It is fully functional. Whatever you create in this application, you get to view. Now here's where they get you with the licensing. You create something, you get to view it, but you can't give it to somebody else to view unless that user has a license. So if you create it, you can view it. If you create it, other licensed viewers can view it. So you wouldn't need a license to generate the report, but somebody else would need a license if they were going to view the report. And unless you have a license of your own, you wouldn't be able to view other people's creations. So as long as you're just building things for yourself, it's completely free. But the moment you want to branch out beyond that and you want to share those documents with others, then somebody in this equation is going to have to purchase a license. Now, to obtain this software, if you go to www.QlikView.com/download, this will give you access to the download library. And there are other programs that QlikTech, which is the company that designs or develops QlikView, have. Almost all of them have sort of a trial version that you can download. But here we would download QlikView. If you register this download, you will also get access to what's called the Qlik community. And this is another one of the big selling points with QlikView, is that we have this community support for people. And that's accessible by going to community.QlikView.com. And if you go there, you'll have access to all sorts of sample files. If you have questions with the program, you can post those questions. People can read your questions. They can post answers back. There's an entire resource library that you have access to. There are key players in the Qlik community that will periodically have blog posts on different topics and different strategies, and that will also allow you to learn the program more effectively. And if you can't find a blog post that suits your needs, there is also an entire library of written and video tutorials that you have access to. When pulling data, Joel had mentioned that you can pull data from disparate data sources and create your own little data model inside of QlikView. This is what I'll call the short list, and as you can see, it's not exactly short. But if you're trying to get an idea of, well, can QlikView work with my program, the program that holds my data? Well, you can see this list here. If the data source that you have is in this list, then 2 thumbs up, you're already ready to go. Now, if it's not in this list, that doesn't mean that you can't pull data from it. It just means that it didn't make it into my short list, or there may be something you would have to acquire from the developer to create some sort of connector between QlikView and your data store application. But you can tell from this list that the number of disparate data sources is quite large. Now, when we pull information from these data sources, in traditional BI tools, you would have to have some level of database experience to be able to know how to pull fields from certain databases and how to create connections between those sources with these things called joins, and like inner joins and outer joins, and left and right joins. And although all of that is great to know, it's not required with QlikView, because what QlikView will do is it will automatically look at your different data sources and then connect them automatically, as long as there's at least one shared field between each data source that has the same name. These are what we call key fields. So if I have an employee ID field in one database and an employee ID field in another database, those 2 databases can contain wildly different information. But as long as that employee ID exists in both, all you have to do is point to those files and they will become one single unified data model within the QlikView world. When it comes to your output, these are the various methods at which you can distribute your output. Anybody who has a web browser that either has ActiveX or an Ajax client built into it will be able to view a QlikView report. You can also view these on iPads, Surface tablets, or just about any other type of tablet. Mobile devices like iPhones, Androids, and Blackberries can also view QlikView reports. And a nice thing about the program is it will actually detect the type of device that you're viewing it on and can tailor the output to the device. So if you've got a really small screen, you wouldn't necessarily want to see a report that was written for a desktop monitor, because it would be so data intensive that you couldn't read it on a handheld device. So it'll actually adapt that data to the device. If you have any web solutions that your company uses that are .NET based, QlikView is already compatible with that. And of course, there's the ever-present PDF file that you could always dump a QlikView report into. So that's enough talk. Let's go straight into the demonstrations. And I'm going to start off with a demonstration that comes with the QlikView program. So when you download the personal edition, this is already built into it. So for those of you who have already downloaded it, you may have seen this before, but if you haven't, and you go out and download the program, you can go straight in and do exactly what I'm about to demonstrate to you. So let me get out of my slideshow, and I'm going to open up my movie database. So this is what you will see in the QlikView application. Now, one thing that I want to point out, I've got several demos here. This demo, it has been turned into a self-existing executable. So that means I don't even have to have the QlikView program to run this report. So if you were to purchase a license, you would be able to generate these types of on their own demonstrations or reports. But one of the things that this movie database allows me to do is to get a good idea of the differences between a more traditional BI tool versus the way QlikView approaches it. If I were to go straight to this tab that says traditional OLAP, this little graphic that you see right here is sort of the thought process of traditional BI reporting systems, where you start at the top of the question and then you can go into a couple different directions, and then based on that position you ask another question and you can go into a couple different directions. But by the time you get to the end of this thought tree, you may come up with a question that I thought of the question over here, but the answer to it is way over here in this part of the tree. Well, now I've got to navigate all the way back up the tree and then come all the way back down. That's what this demo is showing you here. So in the case of this list here, where I have a list of movie directors, if I were to do a search for somebody like Steven Spielberg, and I were to say, show me all movies by Steven Spielberg, well, then I get a results list of all of those movies. I could then click on a movie like Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then it shows me all of the actors who are in Raiders of the Lost Ark, at which point I could now go to Harrison Ford, and now I am at the end of that tree. Well, now what if I decide I want to know what are all the movies that Harrison Ford was involved in? I can't get there from here without backing up several steps or just resetting the entire process and starting all over. And instead of saying, let's not look at directors, let's look at actors instead. Well, in this case, my data model doesn't support finding actors directly. It only lets me start at the director level, which means I now have to go to my BI developer and develop a completely different report. What QlikView lets me do is to say, I'm going to give you three lists. I will give you a list of, let me try that again. I'll give you a list of your directors. And for some reason my little tool is messing up on me here. I'm going to give you a list of all your directors, the movie titles, and actors. You start from any position that you want. So if you look at this little diagram here, notice it's not in a tree hierarchy. It's more of a mesh hierarchy where from just about any position I can travel to just about any other position. So if I wanted to start with a director, I could start with Steven Spielberg again, and then I can see all 15 titles in the database of that director, at which point I could go to Raiders of the Lost Ark, I could see all the actors, and I could go to Harrison Ford. Well, I could just as easily had gone to actors and just started with Harrison Ford. And now I can see every movie title that Harrison Ford has been involved in and every director of that movie title. So if I went straight to Indiana Jones, or how about Raiders of the Lost Ark, I'll keep this consistent. Now I'm sort of working my way backwards that says Steven Spielberg was the person who directed that movie. So the whole point here is that you can begin from any perspective and then go into any direction that you wish. You also may have noticed that in my little movie database, I have a chart down here. And one of the things that QlikView allows me to do is to have multiple charts occupy the same geographic space on the screen. So in a lot of dashboarding tools, if I wanted to look at this as a area chart or a line chart, or maybe as just a straight tabular list of data like you would see in an Excel spreadsheet, I have to have several things on the screen to demonstrate that. But in this case, I can just come up here and click a little button. This is what we call a fast change button. And I can switch that from a bar chart to an area chart. or maybe I want to switch that to just a table of information. So I'm going to get a little deeper into this into some of the other demonstrations, but this is just your first taste into a fast change graph. Looking at this from a dashboard point of view, remember I'm looking at the exact same database. In my dashboard, over on the left, I have an entire set of filters. So it's very similar to this previous tab where I had these different boxes that were allowing me to start from any perspective, but now I've just placed them on the side. So I could go again back up to directors and I could type in Steven and go straight to Steven Spielberg, and now I'm looking at all actors who've ever been in a Steven Spielberg movie and every movie that Steven Spielberg has created, at least as far as my database is concerned. And I can start whittling those down. Notice as I click from director to director, all of my graphics over here are changing because now I'm seeing the movies expressed over time in this orange bar chart. I'm seeing the length of the movies that the director has created broken down by certain hourly intervals, and then also the actors, favorite actors that the director favors in their movies. I'll go ahead and clear that. So if you wanted to go straight to title and I did something like Star Wars, then I could see every single actor who's involved in Star Wars, the length of the movie. In addition to the filters and the fast-changing graphs, we saw that before, but now you can see I have these fast-changing graphs in this report as well. So I can go between a pie chart, a table, a bar chart, an area chart. But within each of those fast changes, I have another button right here. It looks like a little curvy orange arrow, and this is what we call a cyclic expression. Right now I'm looking at a pie chart that parses all of my movies based on the length of the movie. But if I were to click that button, now I can see a pie chart that clusters my movies based on the decade that they were created. And if I click it again, now I can see it by year. Now at this point, that pie chart starts to become a little worthless. But it's just to demonstrate how you can actually have multiple versions of that pie chart looking at different perspectives of the data. Same thing over here with the actors. I've got my database showing all of my actors by order of the number of movies that that actor has been involved in. So I can see Henry Fonda, according to my database, has been in more movies than any actor. And if I scroll down, then I can get all the way down to people who've just been in one movie. But I could hit that little cyclic expression button, and I could say, now show me that same chart, but show it in relation to directors who've directed the most movies. So I can bounce back and forth between greatest number of movies an actor has been in versus greatest number of movies a director has produced. With all of these charts, you can focus in on a particular area of the chart very quickly. One way to do that, in the case of a pie chart, if I look at this pie and I say, well, I really want to look at movies that are between an hour and a half and 2 hours long, which happens to be the vast majority of movies produced, I can just click on this pie slice and it will automatically filter every other report based on 1.5 to 2 hour long movies. I'll reset that. Same thing over here with the number of movies. I can see that Jimmy Stewart has been in 80 movies, and if I were to click on the bar for Jimmy Stewart, now I'm looking at just movies that Jimmy Stewart has been involved in, and now my pie chart is showing movies going across the decades. I'm sorry, my bar chart is showing movies across the decades. My pie chart is breaking them down by the length of time that the movie is. And this is a feature that I really like, especially when it comes to really data-intensive graphs like this bar chart. I want to look at everything maybe in the middle part of the 1950s. I can just take my mouse and drag a box and surround the bars of a given area and release, and I have zoomed in to just that area and filtered every other chart, graph, table, report, whatever in QlikView based on that selection. So if I was looking at these years and then it shows me these actors, I could do the same thing up here and say, well, I just want to see these specific actors. And again, I have just sliced it down to some lower level. and then maybe I cut it down to movies that are just 2 to 2 or 1.5 to 2 hours long. And eventually you can cut only so deep, and now you're at a point where you're seeing very little. But maybe that's exactly what you want to know. Right up here at the top, I have a rating system, movies that are between a 1-star and a 5-star rating. Not only have I cut this down by specific years, specific hours, specific lengths, but now maybe I only want to see things that have a 5-star rating. And now I have cut this down even further. While I've been doing this, I may have drilled down into an area where it didn't produce the result I expected, but I need to back up a few steps. Then right over here, you can see I have the equivalent of back and forward buttons that you would have in a web browser. So maybe I hit just the wrong button. I don't want to have to clear all of this and start from scratch. I can just back up. And so every time I hit the back button, I'm just backing up another step. If I back up too many times, I could go back forward, because maybe I don't remember exactly what I clicked to go into this direction, but I know I've gone too far. I can go back forward. And then, of course, if you just want to completely start from scratch, I have a nice little clear button right here that just resets every single filter. On the Analysis tab, here's where I have more a traditional table of information. I still have those filters over here to the side, and I do have the ability up at the top to filter by rating. But now what I've created here is what we call a container object. And a container object, again, it allows me to have two things occupy the same geographic space. So here I have a list of all of the movies. Oops, didn't mean to click there. I have a list of all of the movies by year. Maybe I want to show that list alphabetically by title, or I want to show it alphabetically by director. I'm going to go by title here. What if this is something that I want to dump into an Excel spreadsheet? Now, I'm not filtering anything at the moment, but if you look very closely right here in the upper right-hand corner, I have what we call special icons. And here's where I can provide the user with some extra functionality, and you get to pick what the user can or cannot do with each of these items. So in this case, I'm giving them the ability to print, but I also give them the ability to take this data and send it straight into Excel. And if I do click that Excel button, you can see that Excel will launch, and then here is all of that information. Now that was unfiltered, and I have, in this case, about 1,800 rows worth of data. If I were to go in here and filter this by just 5-star movies, and maybe within the 5-star movies, I just want movies by Akira Kurosawa, and that gives me one movie. If I were to export that to Excel, then you can see it's just that one movie of information. One of the advantages of the container, as I said, you get to have multiple objects in the same geographic space. I'm currently looking at my entire movie list, but if I were to go right up here and click this button that says average length of movies over time, I can now convert that into a combination chart. And this combination chart, there are different ways of viewing this, and I've given you a fast change button here where I could view that as just a straight table, or as a combo bar chart, or as an area. And so you can see I can rotate through these different ways of showing the data. If you were trying to do this in another BI tool where you didn't have these container type objects and you wanted to see all these possible perspectives, you would have to have every one of them on the screen at the same time. The search button, before I leave this and go to one of my next demo, the search button, you've seen me use this in the terms of being able to find things, like if I type in Steven, it says I found all of these different actors with the name Steven, all these different directors with the name Steven. It's actually searching every area of my data model for the word Steven. So like in the case of, I did a search for Star Wars earlier, if I just did star, then it also found people with the names with STAR in their name, but it also found all these movies with STAR in the name. And then right there is Star Wars that I could click on and go right to that particular item. But you can also expand this out and just look at everything in a tree view. Now I'm opening everything up to sort of give you an extreme perspective here. but I can look through every single actor, every single director, every single decade, every year, every movie title. This ends up becoming an extremely long list if you do it that way. But most of the time, you come in here and you usually do something like, just show me the movie titles, and I'll just want to scroll through them. And then when I find one, I can click on it, and it will give me whatever information is associated with that movie title. So that is my movies database demo, and again, this comes with the personal edition of QlikView that you download. So when you go to start your very first QlikView project, this will be in the menu that you could elect to open up and practice with. So now I'm going to close that, and I'm going to move on to another demo called Call Center. And every one of these demos that I'm showing you, some of them are actually integrated directly into the QlikView program, but if you don't find them, there's an entire demos library on the QlikView website, and every one of these came from that library. So you could actually use it to download and experiment and test, or just demo to whoever is making the purchasing decision within your organization to say, look at the kinds of things we can do with this. Of course, you'd want to come to us for your training. But in this case, the call center, if I look at the dashboard view for the call center, you can see that I have some very interesting looking gauges. So I wanted you to see what some of the gauges look like in the QlikView application. And if I were to start filtering this data maybe by department, and I said, show me how all of my call activity is based on billing items, or maybe on tech support or customer service, and these appear to be response times, or the number of tickets that didn't get resolved in the case of the abandoned gauge. And of course, like website support, and they appear to have a very high abandonment rate and very horrifically long wait times. But you get that kind of information just with a click, and you get to view it in a more traditional gauge type display. I do have my fast change element here within this chart, so if I wanted to look at this in a different way, I can actually change that. And just as before, if I'm a little interested in, well, what happened here in this area, I could do a little click and drag and focus in on that area. And I may even be able to click on the object itself and get some more granular detail. This is what we call a drill down, and I've got a little demonstration to show you drill down later. On the operator tab, this has a little more number intensive, but what I wanted to show here was the ability to do that drill down in your graphs or tables. I'm looking at all of my different operators, and I'm ranking them according to the number of calls that they're taking. Well, what if I want to know, okay, here's Angela, or Angeline Carter, and I'm more interested in who it is that she is servicing, the different clients, the different customers. I can click on her bar, and now this entire bar chart has now turned into a customers chart, but it's customers with tickets that Angelina has taken care of. So that's an example of drilling down. I can move back up and look at the operator level and pick another operator and give it a click, and now I'm looking at all of the customers that that operator has taken care of. And of course, I get the nice pretty graphic here, but I also get tables of supporting information here off to the side and down below. I do have some filters up here at the top. I haven't really messed with these yet, but they've been present in most of the demos. And this will allow me to do things like filter by year, or maybe I want to filter by 2008, or how about 2007, and I just want to look at the last quarter's activity. And then I can, of course, take that even further and say, well, what about just for Carl, and then maybe just for a particular customer like Fast Sunglasses, and then really get that information down to the most granular level. If you get a little lost on what buttons you have pushed, you can even have a current selections list in this report, so you can go up and use that as a reference to know exactly what it is that I am focusing in on, in case you push so many buttons you may have lost track. On the shift info, here's just another set of graphs, but it also highlights the whole use of spark lines within QlikView. So if you've used sparklines in Excel, you have sparklines here as well. And of course, if you were to focus in on an area of a chart, not only would the charts change, but also the sparklines would change. On my Products tab, here I have what appear to be more traditional pivot table type lists where I can scroll through the list, and if I find something of interest, I can expand it, like beach clothing. I want a little more detail on beach clothing. I'm more interested in summer shorts, and then at some point you've reached the end of that thought train, and now you can see all the different summer shorts and the quantity of sales, percentage of sales, total sales, etc. You also have, in this case, selection lists. Let me clear that filter. But I could go here to the product name, and I could pick a very specific product name, like maybe duck shirts. And now all of these different items, all these different devices have now focused in on just duck shirts. And I could change that to something else, like maybe I'll go ahead and clear that report. Maybe a bow tie. And now I'm looking at everything related to bow tie, which I could then expand out and see that information. Order details also has some other pivot tables built into it. So this one's orders awaiting shipments, and the other one is completed orders. So if you're looking at orders that for Don Bellon, you could open that up, go to a specific order number, and then get the detail information for that order. So those are several other different applications of QlikView within this particular call center demo. I'm going to close that one, and now here's one of my favorite little demos. This one is based on the presidents of the United States. Here I'm demonstrating that you can actually have multiple language versions of the same report integrated. So if you're sending this to different locations, they can pick their language of choice. Here on the Presidents tab, this is all very sort of clinical looking. I have over here to the side filters to filter it by party, maybe by sequence. I can see what my current selections are. I have one giant list of all the presidents' names, and then a table of the relative statistics for whichever president I happen to select. I also have a series of different selection boxes up here at the top. So just for seeing how this would work, if I were to click on the number 36 in sequence, then I can see that Lyndon Baines Johnson was the president, the 36th president, and then it gives me all of this statistical information about Lyndon Baines Johnson, where if I were to click 39, then that would be Jimmy Carter. If I did 42, that would be Bill Clinton. Now you might say, well, why did you think that was so interesting? That just seems like more of the same. Well, if we were to go to the Pivot Tables tab, now I've got some graphics going on here, and I can see things like MECO charts and historical charts down here at the bottom, where I could say things such as, show me everything by Democrats, or show me everything from Republicans, show me all of their activity. Maybe through presidential information, show me everybody who was born in, how about Virginia? And then I can see here the various Democrats, the Whig Party, the Federalist Party, and then I can MECO chart that and even pivot table it. So this is getting a little more interesting here. But now we get to some other types of charts. Here are some pie charts, line charts, bar charts, and I can do some little click and drags and focus in on just particular states. I could click on a state and then drill down into that state's statistic data. And then as the cherry on top, you could even integrate photographs. So if you were to click on 38 and it says, well, Gerald Rudolph Ford was the 38th president, you get that statistical information here at the bottom, and you can also see a picture of Gerald Ford. So if I were to go to various other presidents, you can see how all of these presidents have pictures associated with them. So imagine having a product line where you click on a product's name and a photograph of that product appears on the screen. For those of you who are golfers, I'm going to open up my Golf Quest demonstration. And again, I can choose from various different languages that the user might want to use this report in. But then I could go to find a course, and what I have here is just two tables basically, or two pages. One is just a whole lot of ways to decide on what golf course you want to golf on. And you could base it on weather, attributes of the course, the kind of grass they use, the attributes of the club itself, the difficulty of the course, the location. So maybe I'm going to go to the United States. I'm planning on traveling to Florida, and I'm going to be in the West Palm Beach area. Now, I could keep slicing and dicing, but I'm just going to leave it at this point. But I know in West Palm Beach, I've got reports here sorting my golf courses by difficulty, by course attributes, by weather. Now, if I'm not going to slice and dice any further, these are my only criteria. I can now say View Available Courses, and this now generates a list of every course in that area. I can now click from course to course and get all of the information about those courses. Maybe the address, the greens fees, when it was built, who owns it, what's their phone number. And then in most cases, I could even click on this button and go ahead and bring this straight up a map of where this golf course is, and maybe even get driving directions. Now, of course, I'm leveraging Google Maps with this. This isn't part of QlikView, but it's nice to know that you can do that. So if you golf enthusiasts, that right there was probably the main selling point for you. And again, this demo can be downloaded from QlikView's website. Now, I've spent most of the seminar showing you these different demonstrations, but now let's talk about how did I actually create those objects. Now, I didn't create those demos, but anything in those demos you would be able to learn how to create in the QlikView course. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up a blank QlikView document. So this is the QlikView program that you would see if you downloaded it from the website. Now, of course, everything I'm going to show you we cover in the course. So I'm going to go through this very quickly. I'm not going to provide a lot of explanation, but it's just to kind of whet your appetite so that you can see how easily you can make these items. So the first thing I'm going to do is I have to connect to a database. So I'm going to go out and connect to a database that I have on file called flight data. And this flight data database has all sorts of information about flight statistics. It shows the airline name, the different types of aircraft, the locations from which the flights originated, where were they destined, how many passengers were on the flight, how much freight was transported. All of this information is in this database. Now, I may not know anything about databases. I just need to know how to go point to the file. So I go ahead and hit load, and I load 1.2 million records worth of data. Now, if I look a little bit behind the scenes, this is the database that was loaded. Excuse me. So you can see these are all the different categories or fields of information from that data source. I can now start to model that data in my QlikView dashboard. So if I wanted to create a couple quick filters, things like I want to be able to filter by destination country, and then maybe I will also filter by, let me stretch that out a bit. I'll create another list, and maybe I will also be able to filter that down by destination city. So again, these are just two quick filters that I've created. Now, being able to filter is great, but if you don't have anything to look at as a result of the filter, they're not of much value. So I'm now going to go up here, and I'm going to add a chart to my document. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to decide what kind of chart I want. And you can see here are all the different kinds of charts, like radar charts and gauges and MECO charts and pie charts and scatter graphs. There's a whole lot to choose from in here. So I'm going to choose just a simple bar chart, and I'm going to hit next. Now, these next several pages are just all the different buttons I can push and levers I can pull to make my finished product look a certain way. Well, what do I want to make a bar chart out of, or how am I going to group this data? Well, I'm going to cluster this data by year. So I choose year, and I add that as a dimension. Now, what am I making the bars out of that I'm grouping by year? Well, this is the mathematical logic. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sum up the number of departures performed. I'm also going to show values on the data points because I want the numbers to be above each bar. And then I could do some sorting. I could maybe style this up a little bit differently and say, well, give me this sort of 3D bar chart. Maybe on the axis tab, I want to hide the axis. On the numbers, I want to style my numbers a certain way, so just like number styles in Excel. And then I will finalize this out on my captions list, and I'm going to put a title at the top that says Departures Performed. And I'm not going to show any special icons. These were those little buttons that you saw where the user was able to do things like print the report or export it to Excel. So this is where you get to pick and choose exactly what they can or cannot do with that data. So I'm going to hit Finish, and now I have my little column chart. So if I went over here to the left and I said, well, I want to look at all activity for the United States, I'll scroll down and I'll find United States, and now my bar chart has changed. And if I said, well, everything that's destined for, how about Albany, New York, and now I'm looking at a bar chart for Albany, New York. Now it would be nice if I could click on one of these reports and be able to break it down by month, but as you can see right now, the default is just to focus on that particular year. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the properties of this chart, and then I'm going to make a modification that gives me the ability to drill down. So if I go to my Dimensions tab, I can create what's called a drill down group. And I'm going to call this drill down group Time. And I want to be able to collect it by year, but then be able to also drill into that year by month. So I'm going to take my original year out and add this new time group into place. Now when I hit OK, you can see down in the lower right-hand corner, I've got this little up arrow button. That's an indicator that tells me I have drill down capability, because now if I click on a year, now I can break that down by month. And I can use this little up arrow button to drill out, if you will. So I could drill into 2009, I can drill back, I can drill into 2011, I can drill back. And of course, if you're looking at a particular year and you start filtering by any of these criteria off on the side, then your chart will start to change. What if I also want to add a table that shows me the top 10 routes by whatever country or city that I've selected? Well, in that case, if I go in and I were to create what we'll call a straight table, then on my dimensions, I'm trying to make a straight table based on the from to city information. Now I have to tell it what information I want to mathematically calculate, and so here's where you have to create some functions like you would in Excel. So I might want to create a column that's going to sum up departures performed, and I'm going to call that flights, F-L-I-G-H-T-S. And then I'm going to add another one where I'm going to sum up, and in this case I'm going to sum up the number of transported passengers. And I'll call that one passengers. I'll just do two more real quick. I'm going to sum up transported freight, and I will call this one freight. And then last but not least, I'll sum up transported mail, and I'll call that one mail. Now within each one of these, I don't want to do any totaling, so I'm going to turn off my totals, but you can see I can do that on an individual expression basis. I don't want to see everything about this, about each one of these. I just want to see the top 10, so I'm going to limit the results to the top 10, and I want all my numbers to be represented as integers. And now I get this report. And I apparently have missed something because I don't have everything I expected to see. So let me go see what I may have left off here. Oh, I did not add my dimension properly. So apparently I clicked on it, but I didn't add it. But as you can see, one click and I have now solved that problem. So here is a table, and of course you could customize this by, you know, height and width and all of that. But I'm only looking at the top 10 of any particular category. So I can see here are the top 10 flights by passenger or by freight or by mail, and I can sort all these lists. But the moment I start going in here and I start filtering, maybe I filter by the United Kingdom, and I sort this by flight, now I'm looking at the top 10 flights going to all these different United Kingdom locations based on the flights themselves or by the total number of passengers. So that is what we call a straight table. I'm going to crush this in just a bit so I can have a little more room for the next thing I'm going to show you. And that is, I want to add another set of data to my data model. Now, if you remember, I'm only pulling data from a single data source. This particular data source does not have the list of the airline names. It doesn't have a breakdown of the different aircraft that those airlines use. It does have an airline ID, and it does have an aircraft ID. I have two other databases that also have those two pieces of information, but in addition to it, the airline ID, it also has the airline's name, and the airline type, it has the aircraft type. Well, I'm going to add those two tables into my data model, and all I have to do is go point to them, tell it that I have headers, and so that's going to be for my airlines to names, and then I'll do the same thing for my aircraft types. Just a few clicks, and now I'll reload that into my data model. And if I go look, and let me expand this out just a little bit, I can now see that I have three different tables. One of them has the actual daily transactional information, but another one just has a cross-check table that allows me to convert an airline ID to an airline name, and another one that allows me to convert an airline type ID to an aircraft, or an aircraft type ID to an aircraft type. So I'm now leveraging multiple databases to create a single unified picture. If I wanted to add a pivot table to give me that information, then on my dimensions page, I'm going to go ahead and grab the airlines from that one table, have that broken down by aircraft type, and that's coming from another table. Then, of course, I have to have something to quantify this with, so I'll just do a simple sum by transported passengers. There's some other cosmetic things that you can do in here, like maybe on the presentation tab, I'll wrap my header text. On the number tab, I'll make sure that I show my numbers as integers, and then maybe I will hide my caption. And then I end up with, oops, this guy. Actually, I drugged the wrong thing there. Let's do this. So now I have a pivot table, like you would create in Excel, but now it's based on the airline's name, and if I scroll down and I found an airline, like say Delta Airlines, and I were to click its plus sign, now I can see every aircraft type by Delta Airlines, and if I were to click on that aircraft type, now my charts are changing, showing me the statistics and all of the top 10 flights as it applies to just that Boeing 737-800. If I want to have statistics that give me basic information about whatever it is I'm selecting, I can go ahead and choose something like I want to get statistics on ramp to ramp time. Just a couple clicks, and I now have this little statistics box that no matter what I'm clicking on up here, I can see the statistics for that element in this little statistics box. So if I said just show me ramp to ramp time statistics for Belarus, then here I have it. Of course, that doesn't have very much in it. How about I use something like Canada? And now I can see the statistics for that. The only thing I might want to clean up on this is I don't like the way the numbers are being presented. But I can go in here and I can grab all these statistics and just set them to integer, and that cleans those numbers up a bit. So when this little quick 10 minutes, I just wanted to kind of whet your appetite for the different types of objects that you saw me demonstrate and how they're created in QlikView. The course, of course, goes much slower than I went. I went very quickly because we have very limited time. But in the courses, you will learn how to build all of these objects plus many, many more objects. And if I'm looking at the clock here, Joel had to step out for a conference call, and he has not returned. He was hoping that he would return before we were finished. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have our drawing. And I've got a list of, I see 10 people who are currently attending. I think you have the same list here. Just so you know I'm not applying any type of bias to my selection, I'm going to type in Excel a rand between function 2 and 11, because I'm number 1 and I obviously don't want myself in here. And when I hit this button, whatever number comes up, I'm going to count down this list, and that's going to be my winner. So 3, 2, 1, number 11, and that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Faraz Yazdi, I don't know if I pronounced that right at all, if I butchered it. Faraz, are you there?
I'm here.
Did I butcher your name horribly?
No, it's fine. It's good.
Okay. Well, you are the winner of the book, and so I want you to hang on the line here, if you will, so I can get some information from you, so I can get you your copy of QlikView 11 for developers. Don't forget, the rest of you, if you're interested in taking the course, here is the information for being able to sign up, the dates, and if you give the QV10 promo code, you'll get 10% off of your course purchase. So I want to thank all of you for attending. I hope to see every single one of you, plus everybody you work with in our class, and thank you for your time and attention. Have a good day.
Thanks, Brian.